Diary of the Storm of September 26, 27, 1906 by Maude M. Midgette. We were spending the summer at our home in Navy Cove when this terrible storm occurred. The storm really began on September the 24th, Sunday. The weather was gloomy, rainy every now and then, and the wind was from the northeast. Sunday evening it was raining too hard for anyone to even make calls. Monday came, and with it more rain and the wind increasing rapidly. Monday evening a crowd of girls and boys donned bathing suits and took a walk over to the North Beach to view the Gulf, which looked very angry at the time. There wasn't but a very small part of the beach left, and the water was threatening to roll over Navy Cove even then. The remainder of that day we spent in packing, as we intended going to Mobile on Wednesday. The wind kept increasing all the time. In fact, so much so that most all the people decided to stay up and watch the water for fear that it would rise up and cover the whole place before we could make our escape to higher ground. Matilda and I, in fact, all of us, except Papa and Mama, retired for the night. So we thought. But precious little sleep we or anyone else had that night. So Papa decided we would all stay up and wait for the worst. The wind was blowing at least 75 miles an hour. Matilda and Joe said they were going on the beach to see how high the tide already was. They did not have but a short distance to go. Still, they had a hard time to stand on their feet. After returning from the beach, they then went over to awaken the family who was our next-door neighbors. This family numbered 3, husband, wife, and baby, and they, just think of it, knew nothing at all of the now raging storm. So in less time than it takes to tell, they were wakened and told to come over to our house, as we had intentions of going further down the beach as the land in that part of the place was wider and we thought more safe. We wakened all the children, wrapped them up in as best we could, then started down the beach. Little did we think at that moment that we were leaving our home never to return. And to think we never gave one backward glance towards it. We proceeded down the beach, and it was midnight when we reached Pilot Charles Ladner's house. While Papa was out on the porch watching the changes in the wind, he saw someone coming down the beach with a light. This soon proved to be Pilot Alec Johnston. He was trying to make his way down to his father's house, which was the next house below us. But even then, his father and family were cut off from us entirely, and he came back the second time and called to Papa to bring us all out of that house we now occupied as quickly as he and Papa could, for we were being washed away and knew nothing whatsoever of it. When we came out of the house and stepped off the gallery, we were in water waist deep. It was then about 2 in the morning. So we made our way through salt water from the Gulf, blinding rain, and fiercely blowing wind. Oh, shall I ever forget the roaring and howling wind as it swept past us, threatening every moment to hurl us into eternity. The shrieks of everyone as we left the now fast-falling house was heart-rending to hear. We ran out of the front door and down the length of the gallery and jumped the balusters, then found ourselves in the water. The men removed a barrel off the fence, which was still standing, strangely enough, so as we could reach the hill, that being the only dry piece of land left in sight. We did not have but a short distance to go after the fence was broken down. Still, we could scarcely retain our feet. When we reached the hill, we all sat down in a heap and held on to one another for fear the wind would blow us away. The wind was blowing so hard until we had to raise our voices to the very highest pitch so as to be heard by one another. The piece of ground that we were standing on for safety was just about 20 feet square, and we had to remain there from 4 o'clock Thursday morning, that being the time when we came out of the house, until Friday evening, with the Gulf water not more than 3 feet back of us and the waters of the bay almost washing at our feet. It was that close. When the rain slacked up, we could see almost to Fort Morgan, and imagine our joy when we could see the tug Nimrod down there. So we at once set a flag for her to come to our rescue. For our flag we used a sheet, but it was no more than hoisted when it was torn into shreds, as the wind was still blowing that hard. We felt sure, though, that she would come to our rescue, as her crew could not but see that Navy Cove was entirely gone, with the exception of but a very small part of a couple of houses. When our flag was blown to pieces, we became very much discouraged until someone brought to light a beautiful American flag. It was quickly hoisted with Union down to the highest tree that was left standing near us. But all the flags were of no avail, for the Nimrod soon turned her prow towards Mobile, while we poor storm-beaten and high-frozen people were destined to stay on what once had been our dear Navy Cove many, many hours longer. Later in the day, Papa suggested someone should go to Fort Morgan for provisions, but this trip they all seemed afraid to make, until 2 of the boys, more courageous than the rest of us, said, "We'll go." So a boat and some poles were found in the ruins, and they were soon on their way with the good wishes from all. In the meantime, we saw a small boat coming towards our island, and it proved to be Captain Mund, the fisherman, and his 2 sons, who was at the time fishing at Navy Cove. Their large schooner had gone ashore between Navy Cove and Fort Morgan, and they had made their escape on the small boat. When they reached our island, we were glad to see them, for we thought they had all been drowned. On their way to us, they found Mr. Denny Ladnier and his daughter Dale, and they took them into the boat with them. These 2, father and daughter, were all that was left of a family of 7, except one other daughter. The rest were swept from the roof of their home by a tidal wave. Ruth, the other remaining daughter, was spending the night with her aunt, is why she came to be with us that day. When the boat landed and Ruth saw only her father and sister, she said it seemed as if her heart ceased to beat, for she knew they were all gone. Oh, it was awfully sad when these remaining ones met. And just think, losing a mother and 4 brothers. These people were almost frozen when they reached the spot where we were, and Dale, being attired in a bathing suit, was very nearly frozen and blue with cold. We made these newcomers as comfortable as we could and shared all our wet bedding and quilts with them. That was the best we had, though. Still, we were thankful to have even those things left. Just at dark, the boys arrived back from Fort Morgan with provisions which consisted of several kinds of canned goods and crackers. We were thanking those kind soldiers from the very depths of our heart for sharing their provisions with us. And this was but the beginning of the kindness shown to us by these brave and fearless soldiers. When just about 8:30, we were, most of us, trying to get a few moments of sleep when we heard several people whistling, and everyone got up, came down near the water's edge to see if we could see anyone coming, when lo and behold, it proved to be the soldiers coming from the fort in a large submarine boat to our rescue. Now the hour had come for us to leave Navy Cove, and when we were seated on the boat and had started on our way toward the fort, everyone turned and looked back at what once had been our home for so many happy years. And now nothing of it remained but a very small piece of land here and there. We rejoiced over having escaped death. Still, we were sad, too, to think we were leaving our dear old Navy Cove, never to return to live. Upon reaching the fort, we were met by the first sergeant of the 99th Company, who kindly gave us permission to take full possession of the major's quarters. Later, while we were standing on the government wharf, or at least a part of it, we saw a fruiter coming around the fort, and we also knew she was coming in without a pilot, for both pilot boats were blown away in the storm. After the first fruiter came, 4 more soon followed, and last came a very large steamer, and for the want of a pilot she ran aground and had to remain there for nearly a week after the storm. Papa, being a pilot, quickly decided that he would pilot one of the vessels to the city, as the captains of each one was afraid to make an attempt. For all the channel lights and stakes were gone, and there was nothing left for a guide. So the boys rowed Papa in a small boat to one of the fruiters, and he at once started for the city of Mobile. I shall never forget how he looked as he made his way to the ship. He was wet, cold, very much worn out, and so downhearted, and he felt very uneasy about Mobile. He said he knew that the city had been damaged a great deal from the hurricane, hence his eagerness to be on his way. The captain of the fruiter gave Papa several bunches of ripe bananas, and Papa gave them to the boys to bring to us on shore, which we all enjoyed very much. After Papa had left on the fruiter and was but a short distance up the bay, the captains of the other vessels grew braver and quickly followed. For well they knew that the one in the lead had on board a pilot capable of bringing her safely to Mobile. We thought we were going to have to stay at the fort perhaps another day, But our hopes were soon raised again when we saw in the distance and recognized the U.S. mail boat General Batchelder. We knew that after she arrived at the fort, our stay would be real short, and we at once made preparation to leave. We had started for the boat when the first sergeant of the 99th Company came and said he could not think of us leaving the fort until after he had served us dinner. Therefore, we had to remain over another hour. Dinner was served us very much on the order as breakfast. There was 40-some-odd in our crowd, and full justice was done to that meal. They so kindly sat before us. Then again, thanking the brave soldiers for all their kindnesses to us, we once more started for the boat. The General Batchelder could not land at the large wharf, as the storm had completely demolished it. So we had to be rowed in the submarine boat, which had brought us from the cove, to the mail boat. What a picture we must have made for the crew of that mail boat to gaze upon. For we were wearing soldiers' hats, we having lost ours in the storm. The kindnesses which the soldiers showed us that day will never be forgotten by any one of us. When at last we landed at the pier, there was a very large crowd from all around collected to see the survivors of the storm. Thus have I finished my story of what was known as the worst storm along the Gulf Coast for many years, and we all pray to our God above that we may never again be called upon to witness such another. If anyone, after hearing this short story, doubts its truth, they should take a trip to Navy Cove and there be convinced. Signed, Maude M. Midgette, November 1st, 1912. Narrator, Norma Brandenburg Hayes of Fairhope and Gulf Shores.